Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Indy Investor Pod. Really just getting into this episode here today. We're just going to hit on some hot button topics, some things that we see, some chatter going on Facebook and social media, and just things that we hear conversations about within our circles and within our groups through CIREIA, things like that. So got Dave Short and Sterling Davis here with me again today. So thanks for joining me, fellas. Really appreciate this. And this first topic that I want to kind of bring up is this is usually like the topic that you guys are usually picking my brain about a little bit, but I want to kind of reverse it here and talk to you guys and get your guys' opinion on it. But a lot of people are kind of questioning like, hey, how do I buy from a wholesaler? How do I do this? And it's a topic right now because inventory is so tight. You know, we were just talking before this episode, just like anything you have, like people just need properties. Like they're some of the offers out there are crazy and they need properties and stuff. So I think some people that are used to buying from agents, buying from their typical methods, they're searching for different ways to do that. So some people are looking at it like, hey, I've never bought from a wholesaler before, but I need to start looking at how to do that. And there's a lot of different wholesalers. There's a lot of different levels of wholesalers, I would say, out there, and a lot of different properties that you see from wholesalers. So I thought it'd be really good for you guys. I definitely see, you know, when I talk to people and I hear people like, oh, I would never buy from a wholesaler, or there's such an advantage to buy from an agent versus a wholesaler. I see the opposite side of that. Granted, I am biased and I'm in it every day, but I do see some of the advantages of buying from a wholesaler versus an agent. And I would really like to just kind of talk to you guys, not just about the advantages, but some of the things that people need to be aware of or need to be careful of when they're buying from a wholesaler versus an agent or getting a direct from a seller for themselves, that type of thing. So Dave, I've known you've bought some of your properties, some of your flip properties and stuff like that. You guys do your own marketing, you guys do your own stuff, but you've also bought from wholesalers and things. So for those people that are out there that are in that kind of situation of like, hey, I've never bought from a wholesaler before, but I think I need to start looking at that. Do you have some advice for them or just some things that they need to maybe be careful of or things they need to keep in mind when they are buying a property from a wholesaler?
Well, I mean, some of the things I look at is I look at consistency from the wholesaler, and that it's kind of the same every time. There's a lot of things I'd like to see a wholesaler change in the way they do it. I mean, I typically like to buy on an assignment from a wholesaler because then I know what I'm getting. And the reason, and it's a pet peeve of mine, is that if I buy from a wholesaler and the wholesaler makes me pay the next installment of taxes, which is okay, but then I see that they prorated taxes in their buy. Well, I see that as the wholesaler nickel and diming me. You know, I should get the wholesale deal that they got plus whatever their fee is. Mm-hmm. And if I'm happy with the deal, then I kind of want the same deal they would and just pay whatever their assignment fee might be on the particular property. Yeah. I would like to see, and it doesn't happen very often. I would like to see a wholesaler come in and say that your cost to buy is, the cost of title insurance and the closing cost not to exceed $1,200. Where I come into the closing and I see all these junk fees. I see some fees. I've actually seen fees from wholesalers that they've added on top of me of preparation fees. And that really aggravates me. It's just an upcharge of, over and above what their assignment fee is.
All right.
So just from a consistency standpoint, that's kind of what I like to see from a wholesaler. And also that it drives me nuts if a wholesaler doesn't have control of the property. If they're working, if somebody's brought me the deal and they're working with you, I expect my price to be the same.
Yeah.
That I'm coming in. I'm not paying a markup to a markup.
Right.
Which, I normally won't do business with those wholesalers again if they've done that, or if I find it, later on at a different price than what it was marketed to me. So that's just some of my, I like buying from wholesalers just normally because they have control and I know where I'm at, but I would just like to see a little consistency with costs. So, if I pay $70,000 for the house and they expect me to pay title insurance and closing fees, I'd just like to know that number not to exceed $1,200.
Right. Which in Indiana, that's realistic of like that number is going to be somewhere around there. And it's not,
Right.
if there's anything more than that pops up, there's something crazy that kind of happened on that. So yeah, that should come out of the wholesaler pocket.
But yet you see them.
Yeah.
And more times than not, that's a fee that a wholesaler's added on that just is increasing profit for them, which they're just kind of nabbing their clients a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, and that onto the point too of them having control. That's always my first question. We work with a lot of other wholesalers too and stuff, and that's my first question is basically just like, hey, do you have this under contract? Is this your contract? And then when they start that's my partner and blah blah blah. I'm like, hey, well then let me talk to the person that has it under contract and stuff.
Too many chiefs in the kitchen.
Yeah. So Sterling, how about you? What's some advice you have for some people, or just some things to be careful of, or even do you see any advantages too of just buying from wholesalers? Anything on that front?
Yeah, I think I got to give context, right? Like, so I'm a second generation real estate agent, and I grew up very much a household that was like almost religious anti-wholesale. Like, it was almost like, I mean, you don't bring no wholesaler in here, and you definitely don't bring no Purdue fans. Like, so those two things, like, were like how I was raised. Like, Purdue fans and wholesalers, devil. Like, so
Purdue fans would be first though.
yeah, for sure. So, it was interesting when I got into investing in real estate and then opening a property management company. It took me, probably my first 4 years before I worked with a wholesaler, to be honest. Like, it was just, I had such a disdain for, you hear it all the time, right? Like, they didn't get their license, they're unlicensed workers, they're unethical, so it really, I always went into it with a very, with my guards up, I guess I should say. With doing so, I've been able to, I'm not necessarily anti-wholesaling anymore, right? I am more pro-ethics. I'm pro, people doing it the right way. I'm more pro that than I am anti-wholesalers because, working with people like, the simple wholesalings of this world has allowed me to be able to see that there's good people that do it in ways that is not unethical. It's still, integrity inside of it, right? So, and I think some of that has to do with that you're a realtor as well, but we won't go, go into that, right? So, but I do think that is something that you need to look at and say, I oftentimes say that investors don't care about how ethical or things it is as much as they care if it's a good deal or not, right? So I think you just have to be able to find what your criteria is when it comes to working with not just wholesalers, but individuals, period. I posted a video a while back about, people being focused and people really understanding their criteria and understanding what they want to get out of it. And even building a mission statement to do so, because I think that's where you kind of get lost in it, is when you don't know what you want, and then you try to lean on these people, all these people in this market, and it's so many people that can give you advice in this market. And if you haven't checked them, or if you don't know what you want, then you can just be flapping in the wind. So I think it's just very imperative when you're working with a wholesaler, or you just know your standard. You understand that, a while back, it was like a year and a half ago, I had a property I wanted to buy from this gal, and I was like, all right, I'll pay the assignment fee. How much is your assignment fee? And she was like, well, my assignment fee is $3,000. I was like, all right, cool. I'll pay you $3,000. She's like, all right, can we go to the bank right now and get that assignment? I was like, what? She's like, can we go to the bank right now? You give me the $3,000, I'll give you the contract. I was like, no, that seems shady as crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? I can't even pull $3,000 out of my bank account. So you have to make sure you set your guidelines. I only work with title companies with every transaction. I don't shortcut it that anyway. And I think that's the most important thing. You don't go to gas stations and just pay people cash for these contracts.
Yeah. It really comes down to, some of the things that you guys are talking about, of even just like kind of the ethics behind that and things like that. If you want people that are looking out for you. So a ton of wholesalers are in it for the right reasons, to look out for their buyers and stuff. So through those conversations, if you have a wholesaler that's asking, like, before they say like, oh yeah, I'll sell you this property, and like, no problem, here's the price, and here's my, assignment contract, here's all this, here's how we're going to do it. If they're asking some of the questions like, hey, what are you going to do with this property? What's your goal with this property? If they're asking you questions like that, they're looking out for you. They want your best interest at heart. So those are some of the things that you need to look out for too. And I always come back to, like, with the whole kind of wholesalers versus agents kind of thing, of like, really it comes down to, if you as an investor can analyze your own deal, that's what it comes down to. You can buy from anybody and anybody that you want to, if you can kind of analyze your own deal and know what you're getting. So I think when you're somebody that you're relying on an agent to evaluate the deal for you, or a wholesaler to evaluate the deal for you, I think that's where there's always going to be some gray area, and you can always possibly get in a little bit of trouble or not like your property completely, because you're relying on somebody else. And maybe that's just a control thing. And I'm a control freak kind of person. I like to figure all that stuff out on my own. So when it comes to that, I think those are things that we can really just kind of look out for. And I think it's something you need to keep in mind. But, when we're in a situation like now, a deal's a deal. And if you can get it, you can get it, no matter who it's from. So any other, go ahead.
You're right. You're right, because like, I think that's something that I keep seeing, like, people like, oh man, this wholesaler screwed me. And I'm like, why did they screw you? And he's like, they told me the rehab was going to be only $35,000, and now it's $60,000. And it's like, well, you based off you're buying off of their numbers. Like, that's a mistake, because they probably could have, like, they do thousands of deals a year. They probably could have do the rehab for 35,000, but for you don't. So you probably are somewhere around 50 to 60. So you really do have to kind of understand what your capabilities are with it, right? So I remember 2 years ago, maybe it's 3 years ago, my godfather, we had this property, and I got it for 35,000. Me and him did, and I was like, all right. I thought we were just going to burr it. It was on 2933 North New Jersey. And I was like, all right, we're going to burr it after repairs about 110, 115. And we put, 20, 30,000 into it, and it'd be a great burr. And he was like, Sterling, I think this thing could sell for 250. I said, Ron, you're smoking. I don't think we can sell this thing for 250. He's like, Sterling, I think it's 250. I think we should put, 80,000 into it and do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, that is crazy. I want out. Like, I don't want any parts of this. Like, you're throwing my money away at this point. And he was like, all right, my numbers say, when I look at the comps, I can get 250 for it. And I came back 2 months later, and he found, like, I didn't even realize the second floor, like where the attic was big enough that he put 2 more units upstairs, a bathroom, the kitchen was amazing. And I was like, well, how much are you selling for? He's like, 275 actually. Sold yesterday. I was like, wow. But my point is, like, one, your vision might not be the same as that wholesaler's vision, or whoever those people are, right? I would have never been able to get 275 because it was not in my vision to be able to get 275. When I looked at those comps and I looked at how I look at numbers, I was way more conservative than he was. And I'm always probably going to be way more conservative than he is. So I can't bank my numbers off of it. Two, like, it's just that Dave and Dinners and Dave always talks about these multiple outlets and things like that. There's so many different streams in which that you can go about it. But the one thing you can't do is just rely on somebody else. You have to make sure that it's within your comfort zone. And going to 275 was not within my comfort zone. That was terrifying. I was like, get me off this shit. I'm out. I'm out.
But it comes down to too, of like, coming back to that control thing. But I know when I'm buying, like, I'm not going to buy blind. I'm not going to buy off of their pictures. I don't know when they're taken. I don't know where they're from. That's just how I am. Like, I need to walk through the house. A lot of times I'm not getting a full inspection and things for myself. Because, I have somebody that can, is not an inspector, but I'm having somebody analyze like that and stuff like that and run the rehab numbers. Dave, when you're buying from a wholesaler, is that something that you expect of being able to get like an inspection time, or does it just depend on the deal, or how do you handle that?
It depends on the deal. Normally, I don't go for an inspection. I don't go for an inspection time. I just do it.
Yep.
Just wheel it. But one of the things that I do, just kind of talking along, dealing with wholesalers, is I go in and I figure out what my numbers are, and I'll tell the wholesaler, and I said, look, I can't pay your 65. If it doesn't sell, I'm a buyer at 62.
Yeah.
So at any given time that you think you can look at that number, then give me a call and we can maybe do a deal. And I probably get most of my transactions from wholesalers under that scenario.
Yeah.
Where I bought it, I buy at your price. You don't have to buy at their price.
Yeah.
And they may sell it for more money than what you think it's worth, but you're still better off just doing your plan, your program, and at your price.
Yeah,
so,
I completely agree with that. Knowing what your numbers are and staying within those. So, I mean, we've all heard this from working with multiple other investors and stuff too. When they end up not being happy with the deal, it's because they usually stretched their numbers in some way or tried to make something fit that they weren't really used to, or kind of got outside of their comfort zone. So, I think that happens a lot. Good stuff, guys, on the wholesaler stuff. If anybody has any questions, like definitely reach out to us, or if you have any input or anything that you like, definitely put in the comments below or anything like that. That'd be great as well. And then another thing, Sterling, I really wanted to pick your brain. So Sterling, you've been doing some Facebook Lives lately, which I've been enjoying. So I appreciate that. You put out one last week about basically just talking about the evictions and everybody going through that. And yeah, it's difficult for everybody right now of just knowing what to do. It's difficult on the landlords, the property managers, the tenants, just investors in general, wholesalers dealing with, properties and tenants. It's a stressful situation. But you kind of talked a little bit about that, you kind of heard the comment or some people talking about basically like, oh, we want that guaranteed rent. We want that for sure rent. Let's just make all of our properties Section 8 and do that. And it's kind of funny. And, like the connotation that Section 8 has is it's not maybe what it was like 20 years ago, what people think, or maybe we just didn't have the right perception back then either. But like for somebody, like for them to qualify for Section 8, for the house to qualify for Section 8, like it's a different scenario. It's not what it's not the typical thing of what people think. So when we're talking about, D neighborhoods, C- neighborhoods and things like that, that's not just all Section 8. There's nice Section 8 properties and stuff. And just because you have a Section 8 tenant, and it doesn't mean that it's definitely guaranteed either. There can still be some tenant issues with that. But I love to just kind of hear, just kind of maybe just a recap or just kind of your opinion on that topic.
Yeah, so a couple points, right? One, I am really, my passion is to enhance the quality of our community, right? So that is what strives me, and I think everybody on here, that we talk about that all the time is how do we enhance the quality of our community? Well, part of it is mad disrespectful when you're looking only at an ROI and not the people that sit in these neighborhoods, and you look at it as, well, at the end of the day, my house is underperforming, and how can I improve my house performance? And you're not taking account of the reason why you have a high vacancy is because you haven't done the necessary repairs. You haven't put the money into making the necessary rehab to bring it to the standard of what the neighborhood would be. But now you want to be able to say, well, but Section 8 can deal with it. Like, I mean, let's just put a Section 8 person there. And this is what you're really saying, because their quality of what they expect is so much lower than a normal human being's that they'll just deal with my nonsense, right? Like, and that's why it frustrates me, because at the end of the day, we're in the people business as much as we're in, like, I'm a landlord and I buy houses, I manage houses and things like that, but I'm in the people business. So when I represent an investor, that's a person. When I represent a tenant, that's a person. When I represent and pay my vendors, that's a person, right? And so for me, it's just very irritating as well as disrespectful to my community when people's solution is only based off of ROI, but not the people inside of the houses. And then, so that's one fold, right? Like it's just uh, realizing that ROI comes with taking care of people. You take care of a person, you won't have vacancy. You won't have these things, right? So that's one fold. But two, I think something that you said is true. I was talking to one of our investors that has this property, and she was like, Sterling, I want 750. Can I get 750 for this property that is notorious? The rehab is crap. The quality of it is crap. We can't get somebody, and we have it listed right now at 599, and nobody's going into it. And she says, well, Sterling, why can't we just bump it to 750 and put Section 8 in there? And it's like, well, that's not really how it works. Section 8, I don't know what it was. I felt like it was different. I do feel like it was different 20 years ago, how Section 8 has kind of evolved. But when we start talking about downtown living in downtown, my office is off Brookside. We have properties on East Washington Street. We have properties, and this property in particular was off of East Washington and State Street, right? So that area, as you know, I always say there's a high and there's a low, and there's no middle class inside this neighborhood, right? So what I was telling my investor was, there's no middle class. So you just did this rental grade in this area where they got $350,000 houses, and they consider your house a low class house, And I was like, at $750, they now can go to Monon Lofts and get a studio apartment and live there, and they have security, and it's modern. It's so Section 8 is just so competitive now that it's just, you can't just put a crappy house on the market and list it for market and think, well, I know a normal person won't rent it, but I think Section 8 will because they don't pay for their rent. No. And that's not 100% true either, because they do have some that pay some portion of their rent.
Yeah.
But just because they don't have 100% of their rent does not mean that they have to settle for your property these days. Like I said, like there's so many subsidized housing in Pike Township, and these townships now are in the Monon Lofts that are getting built, and they're building them with the idea that a certain percentage is going to be able to be affordable housing inside of it. So you just can't think that a property is going to be able to be Section 8 just because that's the only thing available.
Right. Well, when your mindset and your kind of solution is, oh, I think somebody's going to be okay with a lower quality of living, and we'll do that. Like that's probably you probably want to get a different mindset. And honestly too, if you brought this point of when people are like, more worried about the ROI of like the quality of life and living and kind of the neighborhood and stuff like that. Like that's when you do worry more about the quality of living, the quality of the tenant, and the quality of the neighborhood, your ROI is going to end up, basically
Absolutely.
it's going to be okay because of that and stuff. When it's about, I've learned throughout this business, when it's about the money, it usually falls short. When you make it about the people, the system, the process, the neighborhood, it's going to end up being okay for you, and it's going to take care of itself. So I know
absolutely.
this is a big thing for all of us. We're all three investors here in Indianapolis that we care. The reason we're doing this podcast is we care, we want to help, we want to educate, want to give back a little bit, but we also care about all the neighborhoods and what's going on here in Indianapolis and stuff. So Dave, with you in this situations too, of like basically going into some of the neighborhoods that you're doing, like that's what your goal is to really to improve what's going on in that neighborhood and what's going on for that buyer versus just getting money in your pocket, right?
Well, we rehab all of our houses to, a new standard of buyer.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have accepted this neighborhood. I mean, the perfect example is we're doing one in Christian Park right now, and we're going to try to set some standards in regards to, I went back and looked at all the last 10 flips that's been done in there for the past 2 years with other investors. And we're going to set a new standard on how nice that house is and not destroy the people on price.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to be a really, really cute house with all the bells and whistles, and we're going to be 105, maybe 110.
Yeah.
And in today's marketability of the house, we're changing. Our one house is changing that street.
Yeah.
And it will have other people trying to change their house next year and, the year after next. So, we're excited about getting in that neighborhood because we think we can find opportunities and bring really good value. I mean, if a person on our house puts 3% down, they can live in that house for it's silly. It's like $650 a month.
Yeah.
If an investor wants to buy it, he can lease it for $1,000 a month and feel like he's really giving people value for the money. So we like to go into those neighborhoods and recreate value and start to bring the neighborhood back in position.
Yeah.
The way it was when I was, as Sterling said 270 years ago.
I was about to say it, Dan.
So, no, I mean, that's what it's all about, leaving a mark on it. I mean, that's what I like to do, is that I want to make sure that, the people that are buying our properties are putting, the effort into them. Like, they're nice rentals, that they are nice flips and stuff like that. When I'm driving around the city, I'm like, oh yeah, I sold this house, man. It looks awesome. I love that feeling. And that's who Sterling wants to work with too. The people that want to put the time and effort and money into the quality of life for their tenants in a good situation to be able to get that ROI in the back end. Same thing with Dave with his flips that he's doing. They're always just amazing products, but then also his students that he's working with as well. He wants the best for them, and they're amazing products as well. So, gentlemen, we have time for just one more quick topic here. Dave, I want to give you some time to talk about something that CIREIA has going on and that you have going on. It's kind of like a brainchild of yours, I believe, is that we're going to be doing an auction for some properties, trying to do, our goal is to get to one a month and stuff. But why don't you talk about that a little bit of where that came from, what we're doing, and kind of what's going on with you in that?
The next main meeting of CIREIA, which is the first Thursday in March, we're actually going to have a live auction of 4 properties. And 3 of the top wholesalers and myself have each brought a property to be auctioned off. By the time this episode airs, you will see all the blowouts and all the information from CIREIA and all the wholesalers that the 4 properties that's going to be auctions. These are going to be value add properties, meaning that you can come in, buy the property, work your strategy, and, for lack of a better term, you can buy it, you can buy at your price. And you'll have chances to go in, take a look at them. It's like a live auction. It's, and, I go to a lot of sheriff sales, for instance, and there's a lot of people that come to the sheriff sales on these auctions. And I can almost tell you that these properties will sell for less than they would have at the sheriff sale because of the competitive bidding, and people will have value. For instance, one of the properties is a double on the east side of town, and it's in really good shape, and it's leased at $500 a side, and we anticipate that double going in the low 60s, and it's rented, it's in good shape, and the market value in that house is probably 80, and I can see it going in the low to mid 60s at the auction. Yeah. So it's going to be a great opportunity for investors who want to get into the space to be able to look at the property, do some due diligence, and have their time to make a good presentation and feel that they bought the house at the right price.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a really good opportunity too, and it's going to be one of those things that people have time to do their due diligence and figure out about the properties and stuff like that. So I know I'm really excited to be doing this. I know, so Dave's putting in a property, we're putting in a property, invest with Ben Grice, he's putting in one, Will Hall and New Paradox, they're putting in one. So we're going to have really 4 quality properties here that we're going to be able to put out there for everybody to take a look at. Excited to partner up with them in this endeavor and provide a house for this. So I'm excited for this opportunity. I think it's gonna be really cool to see what happens. And the funny thing is like actually having having a property that you can do due diligence on and figure out what you want to do and kind of figure out what your numbers for like an extended period of time. Because right now it's like, hey, we put out a property, it's going to be offered on tomorrow, and it's going to go quick, and you have to make your decision. You have to run your numbers pretty quick. This is going to be a situation. I think it's going to set everybody up for success. Going to be able to allow the investors to get really good properties, and 4 solid properties at that. So look out some more details. We'll put out some details. I know CIREIA will be putting out some details on that as well. As well as Ben and Will and stuff as well. So, gentlemen, thanks a lot. Really appreciate all the value and all the insights today. And with that, that's a wrap for this episode of the Indy Investor Pod. And we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, guys.